Welcome into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, simulcast live on YouTube and Facebook as well. Every game on the board with our leadoff hitter here, Jeff Nadu, the big man on campus. Check him out on Twitter at Jeff Nadu. We are going 103-104 Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky on Thursday night, all the way down to the top of the card on Saturday, 139-140 Florida at Kentucky. Then we will have three more handicappers breaking down the rest of the card to talk every single game on the college football slate. Leadoff hitter, Jeff Nadu. Welcome in, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm doing good, Drew. I'm turning the page. I didn't have a great week last week personally. It was one of my worst weeks in a long time. But, you're going to have them in a 12, 13, then bowl game season. It's just how it goes sometimes. But I'm looking forward to attacking another card here.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Bounce back mode. Jeff Nadu, you can't keep the big dog down forever. We're going to find some winners here, maybe starting off with the Thursday, September 28th card. We got three games, so a trifecta of games here. We got MTSU in Western Kentucky up first here, big man. 60.5 being the total, -5.5. That's the Hilltoppers at home. You liking anything first game up week 5?
Yeah, I thought this number might be a little higher. I didn't think we'd see real high, but I thought this would be more towards 7 as opposed to 5. I really like Washington Kentucky in this football game. One thing I love, Drew, is taking teams from what we saw in the non-conference to conference play, right? Because that's where we are now. And I talked to you. We talked openly about MAC teams, right, against Power 5. Mm-hmm. Western Kentucky against the Power 5 has not fared well either, right? They generally step up and play good football teams. Toledo is in a similar standpoint. They'll play in Ohio State and get crushed, but in conference play, they're actually very good. Western Kentucky is a prime example of that. In fact, since the start of the 2020 season, Western Kentucky has one of the best conference game ATS run in America. They've covered 15 of 24 in conference. This is a very good team in the Conference USA, and this is a Middle Tennessee group that to me is really going in the opposite direction. You look at the last two meetings against Middle Tennessee, Western's won both by double digits. And you look at the last 4, they've won 4 straight. Now, the 2 previous to the first 2 were games when they had Brent Stockstill, quarterback. He's long gone. This is a different football team. This is not a very good offensive group. The quarterback has struggled at times, and they've fallen into the whole, we're just going to throw the football and hope it works. I think Western has a proven quarterback in Austin Reed, and I feel like anything under a touchdown at home here seems like a pretty good bet here.
Bringing the heat, first game up. Western Kentucky 15-9 against the spread in conference run. Like that one, big. Even bringing up Brent Stockstill for MTSU. He's a great college football quarterback, so a lot of good points there.
Yeah, he was. And when you look at Middle Tennessee over the last 20 or so conference games, they have a losing ATS record. So, we've seen them, though, they'll play well against a Miami or somebody in the non-con. But, yeah, I look at this one, and really it's all a good number, too. Look, if this is above 7, do I feel like they can win by double digits? Probably, but it's not real confident. Anything below 6, 6.5, I think is a great play. Remember, last year in Middle Tennessee, Western won 35-17. Very easy victory. They look always much better defensively in conference, too.
Big man, we got next game up here, Temple and Tulsa, 7:30 Eastern, 55.5 being the total, -3 in the hook. That's the Hurricanes in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, so I won't spend too much time on this one. I think it's a pretty tough game, quite frankly. You have 2 groups that I'm just really not looking to bet. Drew, if I asked you who threw the ball most in America, like passing play percentage, would you think that it was Temple?
No, definitely not.
It is.
Wow.
Temple has thrown the ball 68% of the time. That is the highest mark in the country. That's higher than Hawaii and Western Kentucky and Colorado and Washington. Nobody's higher, which is surprising. But remember, they have a quarterback, E.J. Warner, Kurt Warner's son. Tulsa, I don't really like their quarterback play under Carnell Williams. I don't really think Tulsa is much of a home field advantage. I think this is more like a flip to me as opposed to – I think Temple's slightly the better team. If you're going to give me 3.5, I'd lean that way, but I want to make it adamantly clear. I am not betting this game. I have no interest in this game.
Big man, you're there around the Temple area, right? Do you ever get to a game? Do you like going to
No,
those games? No.
no, I haven't. The last thing I was at involving Temple football was many years ago. This was probably 6, 7 years ago. You remember when College Game Day was in Philadelphia when Matt Rule was the coach at Temple and they played
Yeah.
who'd they play? I think it was Penn State actually. They got beat up, but I was at they had a game day there. I went to that, but no, I'm more of a basketball guy. I grew up Temple basketball, John Chaney. I've had Temple season tickets up until recently a while. So yeah, I love the basketball program. Football, like I've said to you before, they don't play on campus, Drew. They play down at the Link, which is down in South Philly. So they don't really have a campus football stadium. It's been a downtrodden program. So
The atmosphere is not usually as good in college football unless you play like kind of on campus. So
or in the South. I mean, college football in this area, other than like once you get out like where I live now, up like by Penn State, they love college football. But yeah, you're not going to get 100,000 people in Philadelphia going to a college football game. It just ain't going to happen.
All right. We got next game up here, guys. Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State, two newcomers to Division I FBS football here, with Jacksonville State laying 6.5 on the road in Sam Houston. I'm guessing that's in Houston. I haven't really got it nailed down yet here, big man. But you liking anything in the last game on Thursday?
Yeah. So do you know who Sam Houston was?
I don't actually know.
Yeah, so he was the former governor of Texas, and he played a huge role in the revolution of Texas and it being the state that it is today. But yeah, Sam Houston is in Texas. And Sam Houston has had, I think when you look at past teams that have come from FCS to FBS, I think there's one thing they can be proud of. They look good on the defensive side of the ball, right? They've done a nice job, keeping the games low scoring. The problem this group has is they play one of the slowest tempos in America. This offense is absolutely abhorrent. I mean, it's anemic. I mean, I heard a stat recently, and shout out Kyle Hunter. He's a great handicapper. I heard him say this. Sam Houston does not have a run play over 10 yards this season.
Ooh, that's bad.
Now, to put that into perspective, Drew, Liberty University.
They're a wagon, by the way. They're good.
42 plays of 10 yards or more.
Wow.
It's just, I mean, I'm not trying to pound on these guys, but their offense has been really horrific. I mean, they're averaging 3 points a game. I think we got a real nice primer, Drew, as to what this game's going to look like. If you look at Jacksonville State last week, they played Eastern Michigan, who's very similar to Sam Houston, right? Slow, bad quarterback play, 21-0. So I feel like that's kind of where this game is. I played Jacksonville State. I like this new quarterback, Logan Smothers. I like their defense a lot. This is a really, really good run defense for Rich Rodriguez. I think they'll get to the 20s, but why should you have confidence that Sam Houston can score? I mean, seriously, this offense is really bad. 36.5 is low, but I think when you look back at Sam Houston's scores, I mean, Drew, let's just look at them for a second. First game, they played BYU 14-0, Air Force 13-3, and then 38-7 last week against, high-powered Houston. But, I mean, it's not like Jacksonville State's an overpowering offense. I think this game is, 23-7, 21-3, 24-10, something like that. I'm going to go Sam Houston, an under.
Good start to the Thursday card here, big man, as we flip the script to Friday, September 29th. We got a 4-pack of games starting at 7 o'clock Eastern, and we do have a nightcap we'll get to. Louisville, NC State, first up here. -3-point favorites. That's the Louisville Cardinal as the road favorite, 55.5 being the total ACC to kick us off on Friday Night Lights, big man.
Yeah, I'm not running to back Louisville on the road. They've not been real good on the road recently. But I think we have to also remember that was under a different coach and a different kind of culture there. I really like what Jeff Brom's building, so I'm willing to throw stats out. I'm also willing to throw out maybe one sample size where they didn't play well against an Indiana or something. I like the trajectory that Louisville's going. I thought last week, they could have come in and struggled against BC. They didn't. 56. Jack Plummer finally looked really good. 21 attempts, threw for almost 400 yards and had 5 touchdowns. That's a high-powered day offensively. I look at NC State. I hate this team. I hate them. I just don't think I think Brennan Armstrong sucks. I'm done with them after last week. They had every opportunity to beat up Virginia. They just kept screwing around and just I don't like them. I think if you're going to give me a team going one way and a team going another, I think Louisville's going one way, and I think their opponent, NC State's, going another. I think Dave Doran, we have to ask ourselves, how many seasons can we just deal with like 500 every year? What point are they ever going to be like a top-level team? Do they accept mediocrity at NC State? Kind of seems like they do. I like Jeff Brom a lot. I think he finally has his quarterback, Jack Plummer, playing at a high level. I think they're a bit underrated on the defensive end. I'm going to lean Louisville here. It's not going to be one I'm betting, though.
I'm in agreement. I feel like Doran, he kind of gets off the hot seat for some reason. I was wondering that myself. So some good points there, Jeff. As we got 115, 116 up next, 9 o'clock Eastern. Louisiana Tech and UTEP. We're seeing the Miners minus 1 point favorites. There is a key offshore here, BOL at Pick'em, 52.5 being the total. I like the Miners. I know that they've looked bad, but they're at home. It could be a difficult place to play in the Sun Bowl. Haven't seen much from Louisiana Tech, but interested in your thoughts here. Wait, you liking anything, Jeff?
Yeah, I think if I had to play this, I'm kind of throwing out the cupboard and just feeling like the over comes in here. I feel like this game kind of turns a bit into a shootout. I don't think UTEP's very good defensively. I feel like at quarterback, that's kind of their strength. I like some of their receivers. They've thrown the ball a little bit more than they normally would. And I think under Sonny Cumbie, La Tech is going to look to throw the football as well. You look at last week's game against UNLV, that game was back and forth. Gavin Hardison, wasn't real effective, but that defense really struggled. They didn't get any stops, gave up over 300 yards on the ground, almost 500 total yards. I feel like both these teams can move the football. I think UTEP, they're a long way away from where they once were. They kind of reminded you years ago of Sam Houston, good defensive team. You look at La Tech; they've turned in some up-tempo, high-scoring games too. They give up a ton of yards against North Texas a couple of weeks ago. Seems like they've moved on from Hank Buckmeyer. He has been sat down. And you look at last week, Drew, Jack Turner, the new quarterback, threw for almost 300 yards against a good Nebraska defense. So I'm willing to think this game is probably more high scoring, but again, another game that I won't really be betting on. I thought 52.5 was probably a bit low, but I don't know.
Thanks for joining us here on the Every Game on the Board podcast. Wherever you download your podcast, Every Game on the Board simulcast on YouTube, Facebook as well, and Twitter. You can follow Jeff on Twitter at Jeff Nadu. And we are brought to you by Viva Tequila Seltzer. Guys, go check them out, vivatequilaseltzer.com. Remember, it's not just a drink, it's a statement. Embrace the vibes, own the winning mindset, and let's live it up. Viva Tequila Seltzer, raising a toast to cashing those tickets. Cheers to have those hashtag Viva vibes, vivatequilaseltzer.com. Guys, next game up, we have Friday Night Lights here. Utah and Oregon State in the Conference of Champions, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock local time, minus 3.5. That's the Beavers' home favorite. 44.5 being the total. Great game on Friday night. You like it? Anything Utah and Oregon State, big man?
Yeah, so I think this for me is trend-backed, play-backed, spot-backed, and numbers-backed. First thing I want to talk about here, the money coming in, 50-50, but the actual dollars being wagered, Oregon State is getting a lot of smart money here. Pulled this one up early. It got the 3. I played this 2.5, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to ask the gods, give me one good game out of DJ. It's time for him to wake up and play a really transcendent football game for the Beavers, because I think, look, awful loss. They're back at home. Oregon State has covered, Drew, 9 of 10 in that building. This team is very good at home. Very good. They've covered 8 of 10 overall. This is a Utah State team that has not been good on the road. They're still without Cameron Rising. I know they've been good defensively, but I'm not going to take away that I don't think Oregon State's a good team because they lost against Wazoo. I think Wazoo's really good too. I like their run game. I like their fact that they're at home, and I like the fact that we're on the same side as Smart Money here. I think they get the job done here to Beavers. I laid the 2.5. I don't want to push those, so I would advise try to find a 2.5 out there. You also have to keep in mind, Drew, that Oregon State has been really good in this series recently, winning 3 of 4 against Utah. So I think the only loss was last year. They got some revenge here too. So I like Oregon State in this matchup.
Interesting there, that last stat. I mean, the 9 of 10 at home, that's a great stat, Jeff. But also, I mean, I doubt any Pac-12 team, probably any team in the nation has beat Utah 3 of the last 4. I mean, they've kind of been on a heck of a roll. So like that in this matchup as well.
I just it all comes down to the quarterback though. I really need just don't do stupid things, right? Don't make mistakes, just I think if they could do that, they will win. This is a great spot for Oregon State.
It's a good one. You got a good number too. We are seeing even 3.5s pop up on the Beavers. There is 3s out there though, guys, as we're talking Wednesday here. So we got some time to get down on these Friday games. And we actually have a nightcap here, Cincinnati and BYU, the 2 of the 4 newcomers to the Big 12 conference. -1.5 or -2. That's the Bearcats on the road in Provo, 48 being the total. So big night on Friday night for the Utah colleges, with Utah on the road at Oregon State and BYU hosting Cincinnati. You liking anything in this one?
I kind of feel like at this point, Brigham Young is an over team. They're throwing the ball a lot, top 20 in America. Keaton Slovis has really been throwing the football around. And they've turned into one of these teams that over the last couple of weeks, they've really struggled to get stops. I mean, whether it's on the ground, they gave up a lot of yards last week to Kansas on the ground. Cincinnati, I'm kind of numb on. I'm not an Emory Jones guy. It's not a guy I'm looking to back. They were anemic last week. I don't know. I kind of like BYU a little bit here at home, but the numbers kind of went the wrong way. Cincinnati's getting a lot of love here early week, and you and I have talked about this. Early week gambling is generally normally winning bettors, betting them. So this is kind of going against what I'm looking for, but slightest of leans to BYU at home. I'm surprised to see them. I think probably at some point they may even get to 3 as a 3-point dog. That's surprising to me.
Guys, turning the script here to Saturday, September 30th. We got Penn State and Northwestern, 12 noon Eastern kick, getting us going on Saturday. 1-2-1, 1-2-2 as we'll hit about 8 games on the Saturday slate. -27, just short of 4 touchdown road favorite. That's the Nittany Lions, 46 being the total. BMOC, I don't want to go against Penn State, but 4 touchdowns is a lot. Do you like anything here in Big Ten action?
Yeah, it's interesting. Northwestern's been a lot peskier than I thought they'd be this year. I thought this team would be just kind of dreadful, right? Like they'd lose every game 38-0. But you look at the tail of the tape so far. I mean, beat UTEP badly. I thought we're okay against Duke. I mean, they put up 14, only lost by 24. I think for them, that's good. And then they go out and beat Minnesota last week and put up 37 in the process. You got to be, I think, somewhat happy with what they've done. And you look at how they're doing it. They're just throwing the ball a ton. I mean, Ben Bryant threw the ball 38 times last week. They're going to try to stay in the game that way. And I'm starting to wonder at what point is the number too high on Penn State. I've said to you, though, I bet them a lot this year. And I feel like if you're going to go against Penn State in this game, I always say, why not just lean on the over? I think. I mean, Penn State's going to probably push 40 in this game. It's do you think Northwestern can score 10, right? I think if you like Northwestern, you probably go that way because you're not really getting a great number. You want to obviously have it higher than 28. Gun to my head, I lean over, but I love Penn State, so I'm not going to be looking to bet against them. If anything, I'll maybe look towards a team total here because I think Penn State will move the ball. Northwestern isn't good on defense.
Big man, some people are starting to ask some questions. Loving this segment with you, by the way. You're becoming a fan favorite on the Every Game on the Board podcast. We love having you. Bringing obvious great trends. You know what you're talking about, college football. But we had some questions I want to bring up to you. One from David Montgomery. Thanks for chiming in, David. Guys, whether it be comments on YouTube or here on Twitter, wherever you would like, it all works. Homecoming games. He wants to hear about homecoming games. Do you use homecoming games in any part of your handicap for college football?
No, okay. I don't. I will say this. I related a lot to like the emotional thing. I think homecoming is a big thing for like alumni and for the actual students. But then I ask myself, is it really? I mean, are they doing like the homecoming dance and picking a king and queen still? Is that still going on? I can't imagine it is. And no, I think these schools are so hyper flex to this point that they're businesses, right? Being a college football player at the high level, like a Penn State or a Michigan or a Texas or an Alabama, is a job now. It's you getting paid a ton of money and you're arriving. I mean, like I see the kid at Colorado, he drives a Bentley. Like, think about that.
I know.
Like there's a lot of NFL players that don't drive Bentleys, right? It's a business now. I think I think years ago, like maybe there were certain situations where that was important, but no, it's the same thing with senior day. Like I've said before in college basketball, that is for a lot of people, they'll use senior day as a way to think that a team's going to play better because they were honored. Now, look, if there's a team that has 7 seniors, 5 of the starters, and they have 2 of the best bench players as seniors, look, you may get an extra little pep in the step. But a lot of times people are Renford senior night, and the only senior is like some 9th guy off the bench. All due respect, they don't care. And if anything, it's going to hurt you at the end of the game because that player is going to be in the game and you're going to give him opportunities to shoot the ball. Well, we don't want him shooting the ball, right? So, okay. No. I don't even style points. That can hurt you as well at times. I'll relate it to Penn State, Illinois. Penn State was rolling in the game. And they were trying to score more points. And what they were doing is they put their backup quarterback in to do it. And he kept going 3 and out. And what Illinois is doing is slowly but surely getting closer to the number. So there's a lot of things that I think people use. And David, I'll tell you this. There are a bunch of people in here that have no idea what they're talking about on the internet. You got to keep the noise away. Yeah. And Drew will tell you, go with what really matters. It's what we know about these teams, not what we may think we know, what we actually do know. And no, I don't think that matters at all. I don't use it.
Words of wisdom. And another great comment here from Rubberneck. He wants us to start setting an over-under number on the number of times in the segment I say big man.
Well, it's actually a great who said that? What was it?
Rubberneck is his
Rubberneck. Interesting. Yeah. It's not a bad over under. Could also be yeah. You definitely do. But I think you're a great host in the fact that if you ever listen to a radio segment, they'll always say like we're here with Gabe Morency. Like they you want to know who, because someone will come in and be like, who is this? They don't know who it is. So
right.
I think you do a good job in that, but
yeah, I think it's called like chatter or something. Gabe Morency was the one. I mean, he's great at it too. You always want to be reminding people because the average listener on a radio segment is only like 7.5 minutes or something like that.
Right, and remember on radio you don't see the people. Now here it's a bit different. I think you're just a lot of people don't know. I've known Drew for years. I mean, him and I have been doing this stuff for years, and he knows me as that, and that's why he says it. Yeah. He's one of the only people that still calls me big man. Gabe does. I know Donnie probably still does, but that's just because we've known each other. I've met Drew before. We've hung out. We've done it for a long time, and me as that. And you're just referring to me. You're just kind of reminding people of who I am. So
for sure. At Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the big man on campus. We got next game up here. BMOC, Bowling Green and Georgia Tech. -22, 51 being the total. -22, that is the Yellow Jackets at home. You liking anything in the ATL?
I have to say, I like Georgia Tech a bit here. Okay. I do. It's concerning to lay 22 with them or wherever this number is now. But Bowling Green is just so horrid. I mean, they are so bad. It seems like all of a sudden that Georgia Tech finally has a quarterback in Haynes King. Defensively, I think they're getting better. I think they have a great run game. And I saw something recently that under Scott Loeffler, the coach at Bowling Green,
Yeah.
Bowling Green is 8-15 as a road dog. So they kind of just roll up and die in these types of games. Bowling Green, I think, is in the running, surely bottom 10 team in the country. This is a bad football team. I would lean on Jacques Tech here. To lose to Ohio by 31 is really concerning. The quarterback play has not been good. Bazalik's been lost. I would lean on laying the number. And again, this goes back to the MAC against the Power Five. If they go down 14-0 in here, where's the fight going to come from? I think the number could be even too low.
Early on Saturday here, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific in the ACC. We're heading to the state of New York. Syracuse hosting Clemson. Clemson laying 6 in the hook on the road. 53 the total in the dome here.
I think this is a dangerous spot, and I think we're getting to the point where, look, Dabo Swinney's done a lot of great things for college football, for Clemson, but they're just not the same program anymore. How many years are we going to do this where they look good preseason and we get to he is losing them games now. Case in point, the play calling late, the coaching staff, Klubnik's not look great. And this is a really good Syracuse team. Yet again, we know in the dome, they're really tough. Dino's a coach that I don't love, but I don't hate either. He always has his teams up for games like this. Garrett Schrader's legit, man. I'd have a hard time playing Clemson. I think right now this team has chronic issues that don't look like they're going to get fixed real easily. You look at the last 2 games between these two, 27-21 and 17-14. I don't know about you, Drew, but that looks like covers in both for Syracuse. This is not the same Clemson team of 3 or 4 years ago. It just isn't.
I agree with you on Clemson. And you know one thing else I would throw in there about the Orange, Syracuse here, their quarterback Schrader. I think he's really good. I agree with you. He just runs around like a madman. He's kind of like long and lanky. He is athletic, but I think he thinks he's a little bit like a running back, and he needs to just go north and south when he decides to run because he's effective. But if he keeps taking these big shots, he's not going to last. You know what I mean? It's almost like
he reminds me a bit of Carson Wentz in the term of he wants to constantly run around and make a play and do more than he should, and it ends up hurting him because he gets hurt a lot. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen to the kid, knock on wood. But I think you have to wonder what Clemson's mindset looks like now. Okay, this team is not going to win a national title now. They have 2 losses. They had no business losing that game the other night. And another thing to keep in mind here, in a close game, which we think this will be, their kicking situation is a complete mess. And they reminded you on the broadcast of that. I don't know if you heard, but the kicker is this kid who was working a regular job in New York City, a finance job, and he was cut, and they brought him back. And you look at in the situation where he needed to make a 30-ish yarder. He missed it. And they went to overtime and ended up losing in overtime. So you got to look at some of those little things. And I'm noticing that I'll say this again. If you are constantly betting on teams that have special teams problems, not good offensive or defensive lines, shoddy quarterback play, just down in the dumps thinking like Clemson does. It's always everybody else's fault. I think Dabo Swinney's kind of in over his head right now, and I think a lot of people are enjoying it. But the one thing you don't want to do is go up and play Syracuse. I'll be curious to see if we see a 7 here. I don't think we will. I think those days are gone. But I think Syracuse, they're going to beat up the books if they cover, because I think Sharp and Public Money are like Syracuse.
I like that kicker topic, big man. I mean, going from sitting in a cubicle to kicking winning field goal. That's tough. So
you got to ask yourself too, and this is kind of the devil's advocate in this game. You look at Syracuse, because we've seen them do this before, right? Where they'll win 4, 5, 6 games, and they'll play, Colgate and Western Michigan, and like Purdue stinks. Army, this is not a vintage Army team. Now they step up and play a team that is going to be stronger and faster and better. I think that's where this kind of evens out, and that's why they're 6.5-point dogs. But it's a pesky little spot for Clemson, especially currently. And you have to go off recency bias too. How many people are going to take Syracuse here in what they've seen? But is Syracuse just good and Clemson's just not? I guess we'll see.
Staying in the Northeast here, early kick again, 12 noon Eastern, Utah State. Tough travel spot here, heading to Storrs, Connecticut, and they're laying 6 on the highway, 51 being the total. UConn, I believe, got them last year. However, different point spread, and UConn, I don't know, they're not off to a great start this season. You like anything here?
I can't say I really do. I mean, Utah State is still normally what they always are. They love to throw the football. I believe they're top 8 in passing play percentage. They really, really like to air it out, and they're going to air it out here. I mean, UConn, per usual, is not a good group up front. They don't get a ton of stops. And look, for all you people that basked in the whole, Connecticut bowl game, I don't think they're going to see one this year. But I think if they do want to see one, they're going to have to find a way to win this game. This is a winnable spot. But you look at Utah State, Drew. I mean, they, as I said, are going to throw the ball. And we know that, you look at the competition they've played so far: Iowa, Air Force, JMU. And that's a game that I looked back last week, Drew, and I'm kicking myself that it didn't play the over, because there's one thing about JMU that I want to tell the folks out there. When they play a team that can throw the football, bet the over, because their pass defense sucks. They have the worst pass defense in America and the best run defense in America. Think about that.
Wow. That's unique.
Yeah, it's very unique. So I feel like you kind of have something there. And I'm really irritated they didn't play it, because I knew – this isn't Chucky Keaton in Utah State, but they can still throw the football. So I like the over when they play. And UConn is, I think they're going to have to go out here and try to, they're going to have to try to score. So I think their offense should look better here against a bad defense.
Taking our notes, guys, out there. I know a lot of you guys are as well. Let us know where you're listening from in the comments below. What you think of the segment at Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the big man on campus. We got Virginia Tech hosting Pitt up next here, -2 in the hook. That's the Pitt Panthers on the road. Low total, sub 40, 39.5, pretty much across the board. Lane Stadium, 8 p.m. You like it? Anything is Sandman is welcome in.
I can't say I do. I think one of the issues that Pitt has this year is the offense. This offense is producing under 260 yards a game. I mean, it's not going to get it done. And you ask yourself, why is that? Look at Phil Jerkovich. A couple of years ago, I heard people say this guy was an NFL talent. He broke his hand when he was at BC, and he's never been the same. But you look at kind of the understanding and diagnosing why Pitt is struggling. Their quarterback is being sacked 9% of their snaps, every 9%. That's very low. That's bottom 30 in America. It's just not good enough. If you don't have a good offensive line, you can't move the ball. Ask Colorado that last week. Well, it's because Colorado isn't good. I think they have plenty of stars. Shedeur Sanders was sacked 6 times. That can't happen in a game ever. So I look at that and diagnose. I mean, you go and look at QB sacked percentage, Drew. Does it surprise you? This is why stats are so interesting. And I've used this with college basketball with free throw percentage. Generally, if you don't shoot free throws at a high level, you don't win. Listen to this, Drew. These are the worst teams in the country as far as quarterbacks being sacked. The worst is Sam Houston offensively. They're the worst offense in America. And their quarterback gets sacked a lot. EMU, Kent State. They're some of the worst offenses in America. And I bet if you go look at their sacked percentages, they're going to be high too. You have to protect your quarterback. Pittsburgh's not doing that. I can't back them in any way right now. Do I like Virginia Tech? No, but they are at home. I think they're slightly better. These are both bad teams. This is not a game I would be betting on.
BMC, I have a follow-up question for you guys. He said something in college basketball that has saved me a lot of money. Big man reference, we've known each other for a long time. I've probably known him almost a decade now, and I'm going to say 7-8 years ago, right when I was living in Costa Rica and we first started working together, you said that. You said, I don't bet on college basketball teams that shoot under 70% free throw percentage. I don't even know if you remember saying that, but I was on the show with you.
I say it to this day.
Yeah, I made a mental note, and it has saved me money, guys. That is one thing I definitely recommend. And now you bring up sack percentage. Is it on like that level of importance for you?
I don't know if it's on that level, but like I mentioned, the two of the teams I mentioned, two of the worst offenses in America are EMU and Kent State. Now, EMU is 4th worst in America in QB sack percentage. Kent State is 6th worst. You look at Air Force, they've struggled to move the ball. They have their quarterback is sacked 25% of the snaps. Think about that. Like, that's super crazy. Old Dominion struggles to move the ball 20%. All sorts of teams. If you struggle, there's generally a correlation with sack. Now, you look at what you mentioned about basketball. I brought that stat up. This was probably 7-8 years, as you said, ago. Hofstra had the best spread percentage in America. They had covered 80% of their games that year. And you know who shot the best mark in the country from the free throw line? Hofstra.
Yeah.
And I correlated and I said, okay, let me find the 5 best teams against the spread. Let me find the 5 worst teams against the spread. And I went to free throw percentage. And there was a strong correlation. Like, if you look at Mississippi Valley State, the worst team in America, Delaware State, teams like that, they're generally in the 50s from the free throw line. Because that's how you stay in a game as a team. You're not going to make threes and you're not good offensively. But if you can get to the line, you get the right ref, you can hang in a game going 20 for 26 from the line. You can hang that away. It's the little things. And if your offense, it's like if you get a Lamborghini and you don't put the right tires on it, it ain't going to matter. If you have a quarterback that's really good, like Shedeur Sanders, and you have all these weapons, but the 5 guys up front are letting really good defensive lines like USC this week come in and give up 6 sacks, you're going to have 30 yards at the end of the third quarter. You only get so many snaps.
Guys, give him a follow on Twitter. If you like betting college basketball, he's one of, if not the best college basketball handicapper out there. Jeff Nadu on Twitter. Big man on campus. Is next game up here, BMOC. We got a good one in the Sun Belt. Troy and Georgia State. -1, -1.5. That's Georgia State at home, coming off that big win against Coastal Carolina last week. Troy out to a good start this season as well. 50 being the total. Trojans at the Panthers in the old Turner Field.
Yeah, Georgia State's been a fun offense. I mean, a couple of teams in this conference have. Georgia Southern all of a sudden is moving the football through the air. Darren Granger's done a nice job for the Panthers. Mm-hmm. You mentioned they're at home, and I hate to bring this up, Drew. Troy, bottom 15 in sacked percentage. They are getting sacked a lot. The run game has not been as good they have a kid, Vidal. He hasn't run the ball as high level. I think Georgia State and Georgia Southern are pretty legit, man. They can move the football. Defensively, I think they're okay. I mean, they're not world beaters or anything. But Troy always plays hard. They always have a pretty good defense there. I don't have much in this one. I lean Georgia State just because they're at home. And I think Troy has some offensive line problems that I really don't want to get in the way of. I thought Georgia State, that was a nice game last week against Coastal. That's a good quarterback down there.
Yeah.
They've looked good defensively really all year. I don't know what happened against Rhode Island. I don't know how they give up 35 points to that group. But ever since then, it seems like they've kind of taken it personally because they've been good. They haven't given up more than 25 in any game past that. So and they've not allowed more than 20 in the last 2 of the last 3. So I think they kind of took it personally defensively, and it's been a point of contention. Hey, we're going to be better defensively, and they have been. So I lean Georgia State here.
Agree with you. Danny Granger, their quarterback. Yeah, he's pretty good. The transfer from Furman. I'd look towards Georgia State as well. Next one up in the Big Ten, Indiana in Maryland. Terps -2 touchdowns here and a hook at some shops. That's Maryland as the 2 touchdown favorite. 50 being the total. Hoosiers at Terrapins.
Yeah, Maryland is they're a weird team to me. But there's one thing I know is that their offense can move the ball, right? I mean, they've done it against everyone they played. I think the defense at times is a little shoddy, but I'll say about Indiana. I mentioned this about Northwestern. Indiana's been a lot more plucky than I thought they'd be. I thought they were okay against Ohio State. I mean, they couldn't score, but I thought they were good defensively. I thought they did a really nice job against Louisville. It seems like Tom Allen's goal this year is to play in these low-scoring games and try to find a turnover or two and set themselves up to be in the game. That's a tough, I think, ask against Maryland. Maryland kind of wants to play up tempo. They throw the football a lot. Roman Hemby's a great running back. I'm going to avoid this one because I like both teams. I do like Indiana offensively, and I think anything above 2 touchdowns, I think I'd probably lean that way. But I've also been on record in saying that I really like this Maryland offense. I think Talia Tagovailoa is electric, and it makes me kind of want to back Maryland here. Last year, though, these teams played. Last 2 times these teams have played, it's been close and it's been high scoring. So kind of goes against everything I said. So I don't know. I'm kind of jumbled on this one.
Couple games left here, guys, for segment number 1. We got 3 handicappers coming up next to break down the rest of the card here. Week 5 college football, every game on the board, wherever you're downloading your podcast at YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. Follow Jeff Nadu on Twitter at Jeff Nadu, the big man on campus. We got Baylor at UCF up next here, big man. 3:30 Eastern. This is the Big 12 home opener for UCF, laying 12 at home as the home favorite, 55 the total in the bounce house.
Yeah, it's you got to ask yourself, where's Dave Aranda? Is he on the hot seat at any point? I've heard through the grapevine. I know he's a little bit boisterous on Twitter, but Jason Brown, who was on Last Chance U, I do a show with him every week. He has a lot of good info on coaching. And he made a comment to us a week or 2 ago that things are not good in Waco right now. Transfer portal wise, people aren't happy there. They haven't had their quarterback, Blake Shapen, in a while. They've looked lost. I mean, you have to wonder, how do you not get up last week for Texas at home? I mean, this is a team that got destroyed by Texas State. And I think what we're starting to realize, Drew Martin, is maybe Baylor's just not good on defense. I mean, they've gotten destroyed in literally every game they played. I mean, other than LIU, is that LIU Brooklyn? I think it is. Why are they playing LIU Brooklyn? What a weird game. But yeah, I have no interest in Baylor's defense, and it's become abundantly clear to me that offensively they're not very good either. UCF can really score. I mean, they have their fair share of problems defensively too. I'll tell you what I would do here. I would probably focus on UCF's offense against Baylor's defense. I think in the end, I don't trust UCF on defense, and I don't want to worry about them here. I think Baylor's cooked.
Yeah, it's also a tough matchup. Like UCF was right in it with Kansas State. They ended up losing. And if you're having defensive issues going up against UCF, that's like kind of the wrong profile you want against UCF because they can kind of run it up. It's a tough one, though.
Again, I mean, UCF's averaging 35 points a game. Team total here is 34.5. So you're asking them to get to their average. I would lean on the fact that Baylor's offense will look better here. You look at the total here. I mean, it's what, 50?
55, 56.
50. I'm even seeing 54s and a halves. We figure UCF's going to get probably near 35. Can Baylor give you 20s, get in the 20s somewhere?
Probably.
Again, another game I missed last week, and I'll jot this down to your listeners. An over team right now, I bet them a couple of times, and I missed it last week, and they haven't caught up to this team yet. Kansas State is an over team. They've gotten high in every game. That's on a good offense. But I missed that one last week. I should have played it. But yeah, I like the over a little bit. I like the team total over for the Central Florida.
SEC East battle up next, South Carolina and Tennessee. We're seeing the Vols minus 12-point home favorites. Night game in Neyland, 7:30 Eastern. 63 being the total. So we get the Gamecocks at the Volunteers.
Yeah, I think out over the years, I mean, the conference I've bet the least is this SEC. I just don't really have much of a read on it. I was impressed, and I'm glad Tennessee did what they did last week because UTSA is a decent defense. I know they're without their quarterback, but they went in and absolutely beat up UTSA, which is what they should. I was impressed last week. I thought Spencer Rattler had kind of fell by the wayside, but looked pretty good against Mississippi State. I don't know. I don't have much on these two teams. I don't love Tennessee. I don't love South Carolina. It's just a game that I generally just skip over. The only game in the SEC that I looked at was Kentucky. I like them a little bit. I think we're going to get to that game, but yeah, I don't have much on this one.
It's good to know, but I never knew that about you in terms of like conferences and the ones you like. So now I know in the future for scheduling, because guys, I just give it down in rotation order, but I'll stop before an SEC game now, big man. So that's good to know. Thanks for letting me know.
I want to offer as much as I can. And especially these games, like where you have kind of like two teams that are not going to win the SEC.
Yeah.
Just kind of middling SEC teams, right? I don't know how to read them.
Speaking of winning the SEC, something I was thinking about, just like long shots, the winner of this next game, if you get like a big plus number to win the SEC, and the reason I'm saying that is because the East, I feel like, is kind of down in the SEC. So Kentucky and Florida, which is our next game, by the way, guys. This is the last game for the segment here with our leadoff hitter at Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the big man on campus. Whoever wins this game, if they're able to punch up in class and somehow upset Georgia, they're likely going to be in the SEC championship game. And then therefore you would only have one game to win the SEC. That's why I was saying if you can get a huge plus price on one of these two teams, Florida and Kentucky, 44 being the total, Kentucky -1, home favorite in Lexington. They did open up -3. So we've seen some money here on the Florida Gators. I like the Gators here, big man. I mean, it was a tough trip out to Utah. They lost. They did not look good. But since then, this has kind of been a different team. That defense looking solid. They held Tennessee. And Kentucky, they played two MAC schools. It didn't really get too much there. I felt they needed 2 defensive touchdowns to cover against Vanderbilt. I think that's kind of a misleading cover. That's how I read it. I bet Florida. I'll throw it over to you, man. Do you like anything here in Lexington?
Yeah, so sometimes for me, like in these flip games, I just go with what I look at on the surface and say, what do we have? Okay. And this reminds me a lot of Oregon State, Utah. I think it's a close game. Okay. But I get Kentucky at home, and I think on paper, when the rubber meets the road, Devin Leary is the best option at quarterback for these two teams. I got a Kentucky defense that's always pretty good. And I'll throw one back to you and say, did anyone really think Vandy would outscore Kentucky in the fourth quarter? Because they did. I'm sure they're looking at that and weren't happy about it.
Okay.
I look at Kentucky and and I'll relate the scheduling thing to you. Look at Florida. Okay, they got beat up against Utah. Beat McNeese State, who cares? Beat Tennessee, but they always beat Tennessee. It's not like that's a random thing. They always beat them. They just play that game harder. And then they beat Charlotte. Who cares? I mean, this is a game where, to me, it's a huge game for Mark Stoops. It's a huge game for Kentucky because Kentucky's always kind of that next tier of SEC teams. And I think you made a great point. This is the game. This is a huge game. You getting it at home, too. Again, I'm taking Devin Leary over anyone. And I've watched Kentucky. I know they gave out 28 last week. This is a good defense. If you're going to give me a flip, all I got to do is win the game. I'm going to lean on Kentucky here. I've had a good read on this team. I haven't bet every game, but I bet them. I like the game against Ball State. I thought last week, I've told people for weeks, I don't understand the love that Vanderbilt gets. And again, I thought that would kind of shake out like the Wake game did, and that's what happened. I like Kentucky. I think this is a put-up, shut-up game for them. And I think having Devin Leary there, I feel like they're just a better football team. I like this Cohen kid, the running back they have. I like Kentucky. I'm in on them.
Like the breakdown, big man. I mean, hey, good quarterback at home. Tough to argue with that. So good way to end it here. Gators and Wildcats. Guys, we will bring in Mid-Major Matt at 4 o'clock to continue the Every Game on the Board segment. Big man, great stuff as always. I got a full list here of notes, and I like always, throw it over to you. Do you have a best bet for the segment, and any final thoughts before we shut it down?
Yeah, I feel like I have a good read on the Sam Houston game.
Okay.
I'm gonna rock with Jacksonville State here. Look, I don't think it's gonna be easy for them to move the football either. And I think when we look back on 36.5, we might look back and say, "Damn, that should have been 28.5, not 36.5." They're going to both run the football a lot, but I look at Jacksonville State. I think they're a little bit more dynamic. I think they should probably be a little bit higher, quite honestly. So I'm going to go with Jacksonville State. But for me, as the week goes on, I haven't bet any Saturday games yet. I think if for this segment, I would say I do like Kentucky, man. I think they get the job done at home. I was surprised to see that number going down.
Okay. Thanks, Saliki, for chiming in here live on YouTube. Every Game on the Board, guys. Twitter as well. Follow him there at Jeff Nadu. A great follow. He goes live, gets out all kinds of good information. And guys, remember, we are brought to you by Viva Tequila Seltzer, vivatequilaseltzer.com. Get it shipped to your house. Zero sugar, guys. You don't like a hangover, it is for you. Grow up, drink tequila. For Jeff Nadu, I am Drew Martin. Thanks for chiming in to everybody that did. Please smash that like button, cash those tickets. We will be back with part number 2, Mid-Major Matt, shortly. Cash those tickets, guys.